Oh my God. I haven't had lunch. Wow, thank you so much.
Alright. Go ahead.
Everyone was like already happy and content, I guess, with the campus life. Like a lot of people said, or I think one person said it was like just, you know, she liked how it was like a more like quiet, like close-knit campus. No one really had any complaints with that. There was one track guy who didn't like how, he was on the track team. He didn't like how he got, like they got moved. I think Jordan heard it too. Like they got like, they moved their train to somewhere where like was far away or something.
Interesting.
So like when they moved, like track moved to the event center, like a lot of their like they would have meetings and stuff in the rack during the day, and like that was kind of like the hub of all their stuff. But now they have to go back and forth between like the event center and like on all academic and stuff to like have classes and stuff. So I guess that was more inconvenient for them.
I've actually heard that a lot from a couple different athletic groups wherein because like people who are injured used to use the bikes or the elliptical machines when they were injured while their teammates were actually training. And now they have to come to the rack because there's no cardio equipment in the event center, so they're going back and forth. Like the team is also split during practices occasionally. And we're talking about that in athletics policy committee and it's been brought up. So I'll let you know as I know more. Feel free to talk to Gary Wolsitter about that and Jessica Hammond from the athletics department. Anything else?
So the same person that talked about like gluten-free food was interested in finding out where our food was sourced or like where else gets their food from, and it's another thing that they can talk to us about. And apparently, Just Food UBC did a food audit like a few times back, but because there was no issues with it, they stopped doing that. So maybe making some of that information available, and then like space and figuring out why they can or can't use space is worth clarifying, and like who's in charge of assigning space and stuff like that. Because a lot of people, mostly like the MTC, I think, is what they would call, or another data org, who I was talking to, was not convinced when I was like, it's probably events. And they're like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure it's SGA, and that kind of stuff. So.
They said it was pretty much SGA for what issue?
For not getting space, or not getting the space that they were like applying for, and like, oh no, you can't reserve this space or that space.
And that was musical theater club members?
I don't know if it was theater club, but I know it was someone in like a performance board, like a theater issue board, I don't know if it's MTC or council of majors.
Theater.
Yeah, one or the other. But I don't know if it's part of both. I can clarify if that's worth clarifying. I can find out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So moving on, I think the last thing that Jordan and I had a conversation with someone about is also food, and it was related to the contract of Chartwell's, and maybe someone else knows this, but did we renew Chartwell's contract recently?
They're up for renewal. No, they're up for bidding.
Okay.
Any other contract.
Because he told us that it was up for bidding, and we weren't quite sure if that process had, like, it was already renewed, and we weren't quite sure where we were in that process. So a lot of his thought process was that by renewing, like, as we're going through this bidding process, he wants to see that we're actually going through a competitive bidding process so we can get the best price possible, because he's really worried that we're going to have really high prices and not, as, like, the price doesn't match up with the quality of the food on campus.
It's a Lynn Schaefer question, because she's the one that led the food contract efforts a year ago when they were discussing about Chartwell getting a rebid or an extension to their contract. but that's on a shape or fashion. Trying to contact her.
That might be a good conversation for us to have later after budget. So moving on into more constructive criticism of how it went. What do you guys think could be improved for next time? There's a lot of lessons we could go.
I think I talked a little bit about it like right after, but I think just having it in a different location, because 8 and like you see is kind of empty, and so somewhere like the library or even like just another type of day. But I don't like the UC is just a good location in general, because it's either empty or it's like packed, and it's hard to maneuver around. So.
I know one thing that I felt was that when we were talking to someone, we kind of interrupted them and like someone had their headphones in and like we introduced ourselves and they pulled it out, but they didn't want to talk to us even though they were like engaging in a conversation. It was like I could tell that I think they were typing on their computers about us.
No, they were.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
Because I could like see that they had something going on and I could feel like really awkward, so I feel like we felt awkward doing it. It didn't feel like we got some meaningful feedback, but it didn't feel very friendly. Like we were kind of pushing ourselves on them. So I think, especially, I agree with you about the time. Like 8 o'clock is when people are doing homework at these Starbucks, and I felt really awkward interrupting.
I wonder how this is different from like canvassing. Like it's the same.
It's very similar. I think the difference between canvassing and like the civic outreach is that canvassing is you're going out and you're trying to promote yourself as a candidate, versus this, we're trying to make it more of a genuine conversation. So, not in every case, but I think the major differences is in what I would say it's much more like pure or innocent reason. Like that's a weird wording to put.
Okay.
It's not. We're not meant to be like menacing or imposing things. We're really just trying to have a conversation.
Right. I'm wondering if maybe we made it more like kind of voluntary, or like just ask them if like, hey, do you want to like? I don't know. I wasn't really talking about that. I was just like, being like, hey, person I know, let's talk about something. But like, maybe we were like, is now like a good time to have a conversation, or they're like, no, I'm actually doing homework. In a way that they don't have to feel like obligated to talk to us if they really don't feel comfortable.
And giving them the opportunity to contact us at a different time.
Right.
I think that was. Yes.
Had a thought in mind, would it make sense to create something that she could keep them? Like a way of reaching them?
Yeah, we used to have business cards.
Actually, we can do that. Like, we have extra T-shirts. Like, they may sound like funny, but we can actually do that.
Are these like proven t-shirts or?
We have actual SGA T-shirts. Yeah. Yeah, like, and I ordered long sleeve ones for the cold, and like, they haven't been picking up as much, so.
I don't think people do it.
I mean, I'd let the new members know.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, I remember when we used to have business cards to give out with our email at least, because that was a much easier way than filling out a piece of paper every time to write an email.
We can do that as well.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Depending on
They'll be in
how-
your mailboxes by friend. They'll be in your mailboxes by friend.
Depending on the like availability of the shirts, could we like promote them and be like, hey, talk to us and get a shirt, kind of thing. Like make it kind of like an event.
Like what we did for Coffee and Us.
Oh, yeah.
We can actually do another Coffee and Us as well.
Coffee on Us, which I think we had talked about in our subcommittee at one point, but we didn't really date what else that would work. Because it usually works well on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So we would all have to be able to commit to a Friday from 1 to 3, which is doable. We just need to figure out like which week would make sense to do it and what the topic would be, so that people could actually talk to us.
Doing one this week or next week would be actually really beneficial. We can do one, and then we can do one the first week of May as well. Just to finish it off. Yeah. Huh?
Maybe like first week of every month.
Well, we always did one Friday out of every month. We didn't do one in March because of spring break, kind of. Yeah.
do you have insights in like when previous SGAs or Senates used to do outreach, what kind of worked and what didn't work for them?
What kind of what?
What worked and what didn't work? Because I vaguely remember when Hannah was speaker, they used to do outreach, but I don't remember how it happened. Maybe you also know as well.
Yeah, we all do that thing. You want to go first?
Yeah, I'm sure you have much more firsthand knowledge, but my sense is that it worked well when senators had knowledge and questions that they had thought about ahead of time that was relevant in some way to some action that they could take.
Yeah.
If it was, I think the question, so what's going on with you that might be relevant to the SGA Senate is a really hard one. And I think saying, well, what do you think about the possibility of plus-minus grading is, people might have opinions about that, but it's so disconnected from what the Senate is in a position to do, right? Because there's not actually a movement right now to create a false impression that people are trying to get plus-minus grading. That kind of thing would get them in trouble. Or they would say something like, how would you feel about getting rid of the gym requirement, which the Senate certainly could work on, but it would involve such a process that like you're not in a position right now to say, good, we're going to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think we really had a conversation with it. We had like a few questions with it, but nothing really concrete besides the map.
To go off of that, it was always really like people didn't take it seriously if you didn't have those what David was just talking about. Basically, if you I remember once we were talking about UHS hours, and no one was working on that at the time, so it was kind of pointless to ask. I don't want to say pointless, but it was like no one was personally invested in it. So and we just asked the question, like it was during Pastor Gavel, like, oh, we didn't choose not to read questions. So like, excuse me, someone would just say something random and everyone would say like, yeah, that sounds fine. Then you end up with everyone doing outreach an hour before the meeting starts. So if you construct it like together based on what you're actually doing, working on, like David was just saying, it would probably be pretty bad. It would probably be pretty beneficial.
Any other thoughts? So let's make an action plan. If we were to do this again, how would it look like? What do you guys think? I know we said different time. Would it be during the meeting or at another time of the day?
I feel like another time of the day would be better. It wouldn't be as convenient, but for a larger sample size, earlier for day.
Like what time and stuff?
Like 2, 3, 4.
2, 3. So like right before the meeting? Any thoughts on that?
I feel like if we use like the office hours, the 10, well, aren't the 10, but like office hours, like that actually already does. We kind of like did our outreach then. I feel like it's kind of from like a different. We already have a base kind of which we can like reach out from. So I feel like that would be easier.
Agreed.
What are office hours again? 10 to 2?
So office hours are whenever someone's in the office, but generally they start 10 to 4 now, or 10 to 5 in the office, but then outdoor office hours was supposed to be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 to 2.
Okay.
So
we can think about that time window as well, regardless of whether we're outside or not.
Yeah, exactly, because it really helps, because even if you don't want to like be actively talking to people, like the tent attracts people. Mm-hmm. So people always wonder like what's this huge tent in the middle of commissaries doing. So yeah.
So 11 to 2 sounds kind of good for everyone.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
You could just pick one day to start with, see how it works. Which one would work best for you guys?
11 to 2.
Yeah.
You don't have to do the whole time. Like if you can only do the 3-hour part, you can do the hour before or after. Yeah.
How about we do, does it work for everyone on Wednesday? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I can't.
You can't do Wednesday.
What time would it be?
Anytime between 11 and 2.
I have a question that might change this,
Yes.
but are we doing this all together? Because if we're doing it individually, then we wouldn't have to agree on a single day.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
true.
It's always better, in my old experience, it's always better to pair up with at least one person so it's not awkward for our more introverted people to walk up to someone and strike up a conversation.
So you can always reach out to someone in Senate and make sure that there's 2 of you and like decide to do it between that time on any day when there is a Friday.
The street team will greatly appreciate your help.
Yeah, what we can do is I can talk to Lily about like either next week or the week after. We can just say like that's our week of outreach. Maybe we'll do it the week after so we can actually decide on a question to ask.
Yeah.
And that way, whenever you're free Monday, Wednesday, Friday between 11 and 2, we'll try and get out the buddy and then see what happens and then we'll share back the following week.
If you want to try something different, I agree with Jordan that like having people come to like a central location. Like we could like set up in the breezeway or something.
We can also plan a MS event for that week's Friday.
Yeah.
So it'd be 11 to 1, we have office hours in the SGA office or on the terrace, and then whoever's free from, what is it, we do 1 to 3 normally for coffee on us?
1 to 3. They are interested in moving it from 12 to 2,
Okay.
but the issue is that if we did it during free hour on Friday, we're going to run out of coupons in the first 30 minutes. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think, so we can also plan for like that Friday, maybe instead of 11 to 2, we'll do the 1 to 3. But I'll talk to Lily, but does that sound good to everyone? Can I do something like that? Okay, cool. Do you have any other thoughts on outreach as we move forward? Feel free to bring them up at any point. Right now, budget.
Okay. Budget. So, words. So, what Lily has requested is that we review the budget beginning line by line. Sort of evaluate the reason why that line item is there. Since Josh is here, possibility of it increasing or decreasing, but fine, nothing's going but. And then again, this is just mainly to get a foundational knowledge for any new folks on the budget overall and like how that functions. But that's pretty much what we'll be doing for the next hours with the Z. Yeah. I'll pull it up. Yeah.
Where is the version of the drive?
Good question. It's in the executive branch budget file, what I can recall. It's an SGA executive branch 2017 budgets and mid-year budget. And there's a spreadsheet that says FY18 revised budget dash all caps approved.
FY18. This one?
Yes. No.
No, that's the original.
Revised.
Yeah.
Yeah. First one. Swag. Is everyone this just like the old just this is an irrelevant question. There's a possibility we won't through all Yep. There's a possibility we won't go through all of it today, but we'll try to get as much as we can. But I also know that this is somewhat mundane in its nature. Because, oh, am I going to talk about it?
Yeah, just tell me what to do.
All right, fam. We're going to talk about it as we move along. So if you don't have any questions or if you're marinating, please marinate. But we'll try and chug along as timely as we can. Cool? Great. We're going to keep moving along unless people say something. So this is the budget. It's a spreadsheet. there's three aspects or three sort of tabs that's relevant to the budget. There's overall, which sort of has our operating support, organizational support for what organizations, that includes our charter organizations that we fund partially to, as well as overall sort of quick down dirty numbers of what the budget contains. Operating is more so very, very detailed on what funds are used for what thing, and that's mainly for our operating support that will be listed in A19 and below. And then coordinator budget, so our SGA advisor does get a budget to support the organization and other items that includes the retreats or any the retreats in the fall and in the spring, supporting for support for folks to go to the conference that's happening in California this year. The name of the conference is
Civic Learning and Democratic Engagement.
CLD, Civic Learning and Democratic Engagement. Thank you, Mr. Mercer. And so on. But, yes, we'll go line by line. A2, administrative overhead.
Can I make one point about the coordinator budget?
Go for it.
So the way I see it, the real purpose of that line is to allow SGA to spend money conveniently at times when the president and treasurer are not necessarily going to be physically in the same location, right? Because normally every expense over $150 requires take them time. During the summer when you're planning the retreat, if the treasurer has an internship off campus or whatever, it can be difficult to get that permission. So certain things that the SGA knows it wants to spend, it'll just basically you're giving the SGA advisor authority to spend that money without getting the signatures. That's what that's for.
Cool. Thanks, administrative overhead.
Would you like me to explain?
Yes.
All right. So, administrative overhead. Well, I guess in the past couple of years, it has been only $40,000. It received a slight increase in FY16 to $40,000. So this line. So many campus departments pay an administrative overhead fee to the university for like things that auxiliary services use, like payroll services and procurement, things like that, that the university is not funding itself. We pay administrative overhead to campus life for that sort of the same reason, but all those things that cannot be definitively monetized into specific lines. So like we pay a flat fee of $40,000 for all of the services all the resources that we use in the campus life office. So like a portion of it may go to the salary for the director of campus life. A portion of it may go to supplies for the office. It's really just not monetized. For all those different things that you can't really firmly say we're contributing to. That's what that $40,000 is for. It kind of is a little fuzzy, so I understand if you may have questions. I hope to answer that if you do. Yeah. Any questions?
Questions on administrative overhead?
That all goes to campus life.
Yes. The whole first section, except for internal operating support, that's all tied in campus life budgets. Yeah.
One point about that.
Sure.
So in fact, every department in the university pays 4% of its budget as overhead. So it's a contribution to the costs of having a university that are not funded from specific sources. So that can support anything in the university. President Rodowski's salary, for example, can come from the department's contributions to administrative overhead. There was an agreement years ago that because SGA and student life work so closely together, the university decided not to take that money and put it in the same sort of general fund that all the other departments' contributions to administrative overhead are going to. because it recognized that there are some things that campus life, now campus life, was incurring expenses for SGA to benefit. So that was meant to acknowledge that and allow campus life to reduce. So my point really is, you can talk about whether the $40,000 should go to campus life or not, but the 4% of 40,000 out of $1 million is going to be assessed one way or another.
I have one question about not the administrative overhead, but the SGA coordinator budget. Sorry, never mind. I thought this was it.
Love you. Shut that down.
What do you do?
Any other questions about administrative overhead? Cool. Administrative support, line items A7 to A10 are, well, A12 pretty much, are pretty much salaries that we pay that help support SGA's mission or any sort of logistical items that we work on, including the coordinator budget. So this might be one of the sections that we will see change because the campus life reorganization as well as the additional funds and memorandum of understanding that we've heard from Josh and Dr. Barnhart, the director of campus life. So the accounting associate is what used to be Shawnee White's position, now David Royer's. That's to sort of help pay his salary. The full-time coordinator is exactly what it sounds like. It's for the next grade. What would be the next grade? We don't know. That's full-time coordinator. And then we have the SGA coordinator budget, and that's for, again, as David mentioned, the sort of budget that the SGA coordinator kind of has overhead over. But that is also broken down line by line item in the coordinator tab. And then contribution towards the civic agency coordinators, that is David Hoffman over there. You can see he's over there. Over here. So that's the A10 budget. We do supply some of his salary. And again, these are for to help support the mission and the SGA support period.
So since David's position and Craig's position are effectively merged, correct? Is that line item still going to be a factor in our?
That's a good question.
So A7, A8, and A10 have all been cut in the draft for the next year, completely. Now there's a new line that will be added for the partnership with the MOU that I sent all of you 2 weeks ago now, I think. I don't remember. Someone remind me. So yeah.
So wait, was that MOU was about the campus life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what about like for like the institute? Like wouldn't that be somewhere in?
Yes, but that will be so like under the operating budget we have a list of co-sponsorships.
All right.
And that will be under that.
All right, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
For a little bit of context for everyone, David Hoffman is now, well, will be slowly moving into a new department, which is, I believe, a partnership between the Division of Student Affairs and Academic Affairs to form the Institute of Civic Life and, what's the next one?
Democracy and civic life.
Democracy and Civic Life, cool. Which is what David's life work has been. And sort of making an institute that's absolutely one of its kind. No other institution on earth has something like this. We will be, there's currently a conversation that's happening or that needs to be happened, grammar, about supporting an additional staff member for that institute. And because David's position is being vacated and Craig, the SGA, the former SGA advisor, is vacant, that is being merged to that. Any other comments, concerns about administrative support? All four. Cool. Returning operating budget. So A15, well, yeah, A15 and A17 are pretty much that entire operating tab summed up as one line item. We'll get there. Slowly but surely. Cool. Organizational support. It's supporting organizations.
Just go down
if we
a-
can move down.
Yeah.
Maybe studentbomb.com. Cool. So one line item that we've had for a while that is slowly being reduced is A22. That's the Senate Additional Allocations Fund. So you may remember that you were sort of given a notice that there is a line item that the Senate itself can get monies from, all through Senate legislation. But it's also been encouraged to partner with the executive branch to also just get money from them to make the process not only easier, but also really enforce that whole idea of co-creation and collaborative work within the SGA. So the Senate Additional Allocations Fund was sort of an emergency fund when the SGA was in shambles, so that the Senate could sort of get its own monies and support its initiatives through that way. But it's been decreased starting last year because we thought, or the thought process behind that was our partnerships and our collaboration has been a lot stronger than it has been in the past, so there's less need for this fund. But again, this is primarily now seen as an emergency fund if we absolutely need to tap into it without the need of the executive branch to do that. I personally foresee this disappearing. I don't see the need of that anymore. It's kind of been sitting there. And because we have a good partnership with the exec. So 11 out of 10. Comments? Concerns? Two?
I can give. Go ahead.
So if it's an emergency fund and like it goes away, what happens if there's an emergency?
So that emergency was more so just like in the case that we have a super crappy executive branch. Like luckily we were given the opportunity in the past two administrations, including this one, to have good ones, where our partnerships has sort of been building from the ground up. So that's also when we didn't have precautionary measures like the stipend review committee, the appeals board, sort of these new sort of established areas that helps create the sense of accountability. So because we have those in place and because our relationships and we foresee that if their runoff voting is also successful, that another detrimenting administration doesn't come up again. Yeah, it's a good question. It's a fun history. Cool. Where was I? Yeah, organizational allocations. Fun fact, we give money to peeps. So City Events Board, if you've heard of them, they're pretty big here on campus. They're the programming board for our university in terms of creating weekly events and large-scale events every fall and spring semester. So the Student Events Board, because they are also a charter organization, we do provide them with additional monies that we may not necessarily give to other organizations. And also, when we discussed their charter last semester, we do believe that their mission does also extend the mission of the SGA and the overall idea of a vibrant campus life, and they help support that. So we've been giving the Student Events Board 2050 monies in US dollars. The same thing applies to the Retriever Weekly, which is technically now known as a Retriever because they don't do weekly articles anymore. We've been giving that consistent monies to the Student Events Board and the Retriever Weekly, which are our only two charter organizations with the SGA. Yeah, let's start with those.
are the budgets we allocate for them the only budgets that they have access to, like off the bat?
No. So they do receive additional funds. I believe the student events board, they also have to go through the entire budget process like we do. They also go through the student activities fee review board, present their budget. I believe they presented it this past Friday or something of that introductory nature. So they do get monies from Campus Life and I believe other partners along the way. But this money is to mainly support, I believe, homecoming. But they do receive money otherwhere. Same thing with the Retriever. They do have or generate some revenue to be self-sustained.
Thank you.
Question? Okay. A29, club budgets allocated by the finance board. Yeah. So club budgets is exactly what it sounds like. In case you're new, or everyone should know, we have this other legislative body called the finance board. They're pretty well folks. Their sole task is to help allocate funds to student organizations who request it. So they have their own process of how that works. And currently, we've been seeing an overall increase to that sort of pot of money, and especially with their new precedents, it's been sort of going down a lot sooner. And that's good, because there shouldn't be any money left over. Having money left over is a no-no. That's rule number one. Having money left over is a no-no. Spending too much money, that's rule number two. It's a big no-no. And then doing crazy things like adding a whole line item for funsies is another no-no. That's not relevant. But yeah, club budget, I perceive that to increase because we have been supporting our student organizations a lot more frequently and with a successful VPSO, which is completely new to years past. We've been supporting student organizations a lot more frequently, and with presidents also changing to support travel and airfare according to its rules. Yeah, period. Simple. Questions? Club budgets. Allocate monies. It's pretty cool. You know, give them money.
What were you saying about a supposed increase in the budget? Like, at least from my
I
understanding.
personally perceive that increasing.
Okay. I don't. But
Okay.
that's also just...
Well, you're in finance board chair, so you have a lot more input and visions than I do.
Yes.
So,
That's, yes.
I just want to, so like, leftover money, it goes into the reserves, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That's a good point.
That's
So-
what all that has to be spent.
Yeah.
Because it's meant for the organizations, and any money that isn't spent just shows like SGA is getting money back to themselves. So
Yeah. So we have this beautiful thing called reserves, not to be confused with the Army Reserves. The reserves is pretty much our like ceramic piggy bank. That's a good metaphor. That any leftover funds from any part of our budget goes into the reserves, and we've been doing a good job in reducing our reserves by having large expenditures. But the only times that is acceptable to go into the reserves is for one-time or very short-term purchases, and they're usually large in quantity. But those are usually the only times when we tap into reserves.
So every year, we don't take, like, as years go on, we just add more and more to this pot in the reserves.
Yes.
Unless we spend overspend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost every year it's been a plan to overspend because as you may be able to see, we've had a significant amount of monies in there.
Yeah.
But it's always healthy across the board to have some monies in the reserves pot just in case that we have to make a large purchase or do anything that supports us. Yeah.
So tend to overspend and we go into the reserves, and that's like the culture. And wouldn't the reserves eventually just run out?
David.
A couple of points about this. First, so you're looking at different time periods as you make your way from left to right across the page, right? The $236,000 plan to spend from reserve this year, you can see is very unusual. It's enormous. So that will deplete the reserve because probably SGA is not going to end up spending $236,000 into its reserve because there's always going to be some money that you plan to spend that you won't actually spend. Like the Senate allocation line, I assume you're not going to actually spend all $2,500. Maybe, maybe not. Some money will come back. And so SGA will in fact dip into the reserve, maybe it'll be $200,000, not $236,000. But in an ordinary year, when you plan to spend $30,000 into the reserve, knowing that in fact some of these lines are not going to be fully spent, what you're really doing is planning not to spend the reserve at all. Because you're guesstimating that $30,000 is going to be, in fact, you're going to get it from other places in the budget where you're not spending the money for what you're planning to. And so it will still be waiting for you at the end. Okay, cool.
And in terms of like how we get the numbers of how much money we got and spent, every single sort of mid-semester or mid-year budget review and nearing budget season in the spring, we get an estimated number of how much monies we would end up getting from our student activity fee, which is where all of this is from. Yeah, that's all it is. Where I believe we still continue to project enrollment to increase, but more in a steady rate. This past year was a very large influx of enrollment that we expected, that we didn't expect rather. Slash kind of did expect. It's kind of weird. Politics are weird. So we got more monies for that, but that will be revised for the next year's sort of body to look over, and the president and treasurer of next year to review. How's everyone feeling?
I have a question.
That's good.
When you're talking about the influx, are you talking about incoming students next fall?
Yes, there is a influx of students who enrolled into the university and paid that fee.
Right. Also, the $25,000 increase in cloud budgets from last year, to my understanding, that came from the reserves. So, because we're projecting an increase in the student activities fee, correct?
Yes. It was more to spend down the reserves as well. So I don't know if the $275,000 will also be included in the next year's budget proposal. That's a lot right now. Like that is the $250,000 from the time I've been here, which has been this is my third year. Like it's never been fully spent, which is the goal of the finance board. Granted, that was like past different finance boards. But with the $275,000, we're still waiting to find out our actual numbers of what we spent so far. But I have a feeling we will still have a lot to spend if we will be lucky to spend the whole time. That's just projection on me. I don't know if that's accurate though, because we've allocated over the $275,000 so far, accounting for potential rollbacks of money. But I don't know if the $275,000 is going to continue. That was just more to spend down the reserves this year. What I understand.
So, what's our what are we agreeing to for our next year? While we're going through a budget. Maybe 250 or just
yeah. So that's why sort of why the responsibility is really important for the president and the treasurer of SGA who come together and create this budget to have those conversations with, to be connected with the folks at the finance board, talk with our student organizations at SCB and the Retriever to see if there needs to be any changes, and then also working with our advisors just to see what makes the most sense of shifting money and if, you know, it makes sense from a student activities peer review board standpoint. I don't know if I answered your question.
So right now, W is our proposed for next year.
I'm sorry. I'm distracted. What was your question?
Is our column W, is that the proposal for next year?
No, that's not the proposal for next year. That's the current.
Yeah. This is our current.
Yeah, you did the one for next year is in the other folder. So, yeah, go. Yeah.
This was the fiscal year 2018 revised mid-year fiscal review that we passed in fall. So the one we'll see will say FY19 on it. Yeah.
How's the extra revenue or I don't know, funds been for finance board?
What do you mean?
Okay.
So I think it's been very beneficial to us since this year's finance board has decided to start at least partially funding travel and lodging. The past couple finance board have not been funding, so that's accounted for a substantial amount of money. We actually did some calculations back, I think in it was January, early February. Daniel, the vice chair, calculated how much of what we've allocated had been allocated for travel and lodging. I can't remember the exact numbers now. There's some of it in the drive, finance board folder, but it was a rather substantial amount that was over, if not around, $25,000. So accounting for that and accounting for the fact that the past finance boards have not been able to spend the $250,000, I think we're in a really good spot right now. Because this year's finance board has been more generous than the years past. So I think we're in a good spot this year. But yeah.
Any other questions about the overall tab? What's good?
Does SEB use the whole 230?
Yes,
Yes, most definitely.
every single year. Because that's money they're allocated from us. They're likely to spend that money. Well, every single budget is supposed to be projected to use all of its money, and including his SCB. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Is there a general trend for like a 17,000 expenditure for reserves, like every 4 or so years? Like the reserves steadily go up, and then it's just
It goes up and down all the time. It just gets dangerous when it gets too large, too quick. So
Yeah, it's kind of supposed to gradually increase, but also expected that we also spend into reserves. Again, for one-time purchases. Any more questions? How's everyone feeling? Feeling good? Want to keep going? Or want to take a break? Whoa, not all at once.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We're going to go into coordinator budget because that's easier. I'm going to speak in a current voice.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
The other things that we use the reserve money for this semester, is that available also on our drive?
I'm sorry. One more time.
So the big one-time purchases, are those available on the drive as well?
The big one.
Right. Like I'm assuming you're talking about like the tent and stuff like that you use the reserves for.
Yes and no. I mean, each purchase is not on the drive. No.
Okay.
Yeah. But they're in the budget. Does that mean?
Right. So like the money is taken out of the budget and that's there, but what it was spent on isn't always there.
No, it's usually not there. We don't put because you only access money with res gaps, and res gaps are not on the drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, for ResGap purposes, you do have to put in what line item you're taking it from. There's usually some bit of confusion every once in a while, but that's okay. They'll fix it. But for audit purposes, we do keep track of all of our purchases and where that's money gone, in the cases that we're auditing. Okay. Can you imagine a world where the money. Don't want to look at that. Cool. Coordinator's budget. Exactly what it sounds like. Budget for the coordinator. Moving on. Continuing education and training. Is that for COTE?
More so, my understanding of this was that it was for like continuing education, as in like leadership opportunities for students or the coordinator themselves, and things like that. But this is okay. So this part of this section of the budget is less less rigid than the rest of the budget. This is just like a general guide for a pot of money that sits in a special project. But yeah, the continuing education and training is more so for like more opportunities and like seminars and things like that. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, continuing education and training. Good times. Fall retreat. That's for fall retreats. Winter retreat. You guessed it, winter retreat. Operations for purchase of administrative supplies and materials that the SGA needs, not necessarily through the same ResGap process for getting a signature from the president and the treasurer. Again, as Josh mentioned, this is very fluid in a sense. And then printing and reproduction, same thing. Questions? Again, zoom. Cool. Great. We're going to go into the heavy one. Operating. Good times. Good vibes going.
You can breeze through this. It's easy.
Election board. That's for the election board. Moving on. Operations. Okay. Operations. So the election board is one of our two entities of the appeals. One of our two entities of the judicial branch. The election board are the folks who, guess it, controls the elections, and are the folks that are folks maintaining and ensuring that it's a fair and equal election for all. Cool. So operations, marketing, and setup costs. There is costs associated with ensuring that people know that there's an election happening. We have a pretty low turnout rate, and the election board's part of their duty is to go ahead and try to increase that. But side note, it shouldn't just be the election board's job. We should be telling everyone to vote. Because get out the vote. Civic duty. Am I right, David? Yes. Marketing and setup costs. So that's part of the costs associated with any sort of marketing and other advertisements that the election board will be seeking. Stipends. That's money people are receiving. So the chair receives an annual stipend of $878. And then members' stipends, that's the total pot that the members will be allocated, divided evenly upon them. So in this case, I believe we have 6 election board members. So that $1,500 will be divided by 6 and distributed among them. There is, I believe, conversation that the annual stipend for the election board chair may be increasing. I know that Sophia Lopresti, who is the current chair of the finance board,
Chair of the election board.
Chair, did I say finance board? Chair of the election board, finance board, different boards, different people. So the chair of the election board had some concerns about this quantity of money and the amount of work that's associated with the election board, and sort of leading those causes. So there is a possibility that that may be increasing, but that's as far as my knowledge is in terms of this, and we'll likely be seeing more in a week to come when we review the fiscal year 19 budget. Does that make sense? Yeah? Don't just staring at me.
It makes sense.
Thanks. Love you. Operations, marketing / promotion. Advertisements in the Retriever Weekly. Doesn't exist. Marketing / promotional items. So that's to go ahead and purchase any items that will help promote and market SGA and any events associated with it. So that's the money we pull out. And then, as you can see in this case, we'll pull it out for advertising and getting our new logo out there, since this is our first full year that we've had a new logo. Go Bees, am I right? Yep. So it's that. Questions about the marketing? Promotional items? Cool. Stay Black and Gold support promotion. So this has been, I can't remember today, y'all. So this has been one of Lily's main initiatives that she's been working on. So Stay Black and Gold is an emergency fund that students who are eligible can tap into to sort of get some funds to stay here at UMBC as a student. Hi, Carly. Hey, don't fall in. So this is to help support promoting it, as we cannot donate funds to that emergency fund, if that makes sense. Like, we can't put money into that emergency fund because of, I think, legal stuff. But that's money that Lily may likely be tapping into, hopefully, if not this semester, next semester for sure, to go ahead and advertise Staying Black and Gold. Stay Black and Gold. Yeah. And the main reason it hasn't been tapped into is because there's a lot of meeting issues and administrative changes going on in Office of Institutional Advancement and campus life, and several conflicts, scheduling ones. Questions? Cool. You're doing great. Office support. Exactly what it sounds like. Support the office, 2B20, that one, in the Commons at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. So office operations, other, that's for others in the office operations. That's, I guess, I'm assuming that's for that sense of fluidity of supporting anything in the office.
I honestly have no idea where this came from.
Great.
I just went with the flow.
Josh will figure that out. Copier rental, there is a double in that this past fiscal year to go ahead and get a brand spanking new copier, which works wonderfully, I've heard. I've heard good reviews on Amazon. No, I haven't. I've heard good reviews, yes. Copier rental, that's for a copier that's located on the second floor in the student organization space, right next to Corinne Janet's office. Office supplies. It's to buy office supplies. Telephone and postage. No, we don't do that.
We actually do. It's just reclassed another.
We just reclassed it
Yeah.
to another section. We do telephone and postage. Equipment update. So you may see the little machine that's in the corner of 318, that thing. That's what we use. Part of the equipment to support SGA has been purchased from this line item. Mainly our goal has been for live streaming, since that's something that started about a year ago. I don't know. That's pretty much it for equipment update. Singular. Cool. Student organization space upgrades. The student organization space was supposed to be upgraded. It wasn't, so we removed it. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the last year's budget, but the rest of these funds are still exist from last year. They just are not in the SGA budget anymore.
So it's just been transferred to a different fund source.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Questions? Cool. Programming. We're a quarter way there, you go. Keep it up. Homecoming. That's exactly what it sounds like. That's to help support homecoming, of which there's nothing on that line, so what am I talking about? B28, Programming and Initiatives Fund. So that's literally to help support any programming or initiatives that the SGA as a whole moves forward with. Primarily those funds being used by the executive branch So that's the alternative source of funds that I've sort of encouraged folks, as well as literally encouraged folks for that partnership to go ahead and send that risk gap and send that over. But again, that's to help support stuff that we do, because things cost money. Programming support. Oh, sorry. So the programming initiatives funds was broken out to be the program support, the meeting support, and the initiative fund. I remember now. So that's why it's currently at 0, and the programming support at 10,000. Meeting support for 5,000, since we do pay for room reservations and to have a projector for our meetings. And then meeting support, I already said meeting support, didn't I? Yeah, initiative fund, exactly what it sounds like. Support initiatives, good times, good vibes, yes.
So B28 is like the combination of B29 to 31.
Yep, it will likely be removed because it doesn't make sense to have that line item since we broke it up.
I think what I'm thinking is right, for I thought SGA funds meetings was for all super organizations, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
No. If they request it to the finance board, then yes.
So the finance board, so if they wanted like a meeting, they'd have to go to the finance board, and then it comes from that.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then this meeting support is just for like
SGA charges too. So like, example, the projector costs $23 every meeting.
Right.
So like, we incur that twice a week. Send in finance board. We have general meetings once a month,
Right.
and all those fees to the commons go.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's a good dinner. Inauguration / end of year dinner. So, there's this thing called the elections. They happen every spring, usually. And once the election results are verified, and we know who the upcoming administration and officers are for the SGA, that's fun because not only will we celebrating the transition of power, which is a beautiful term in my opinion, of one administration or one 2 years to the next, we're also celebrating the whole idea of civic democracy and that jazz. So we have an inauguration that's happening on May 15th at around 3 hours on the Commons Terrace, Commons Main Street, reunification. That also incorporates a dinner because everyone should be fed if you're going to celebrate. Celebrate with food, am I right? Yeah. Cool. Does that make sense? Cool. Trying to make this as fun as I can for me too. B33, we're a quarter way there. Member development. To develop members? What is member development for?
Isn't that used for CLD?
Yeah, it is.
All right.
What's CLD?
So the Civic Learning and Democratic Engagement is a body that has a conference every summer. So this is a line item that isn't really spent until the end of our fiscal year because you don't really buy tickets like a year in advance. So you can't really do that. But that's where the support for that, for students to go in that conference, to go. Yeah.
And that's decided by the newly elected SGA leadership.
Yes. Kind of big, because he helps with that. He dabbles in a bit of civic democracy here and there. What's up?
When Josh said that depends on the newly elected leadership, when you're saying that, do you mean the funds or who gets to go?
Who gets
to go? Typically, it's the high leadership that goes, and other essential folks. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've heard good things, good reviews on Amazon. Stress-free zone. So sometimes finals week is stressful. So we have a zone of stress that is free. What? We have a zone that is stress-free, and it's sort of led by the health branch, health unit, health and wellness unit in the SGA, who helps put that together for every end of semester. And it's usually a set of fun activities and stuff to do together. Am I right? Okay. Does that make sense? Stress-free zone. Happening pretty soon because the semester's ending. Fun fact. Prove It. Can you prove it? Yep. So Prove It is one of our yearly campaigns to help fund a project that students come together and create. So some projects that have come out of there are the retriever tables, the solar retrievers, which are the solar tables that can be found on the Commons Terrace in the residential side and by the Retriever Activity Center. And then we also have had these statue dogs that are MIA at the moment. But again, Prove It is a yearly thing to again help support that project as well as give stipends to members of that project. We grant about 2 Prove It winners, and that's usually done by popular vote. So the 2 most popular projects are the folks who get this monies. So yeah, I don't know how it's going, but I wish you the best. Cool. Questions about Prove It?
Who's running right now?
Who's running? Nobody's running.
Who's running Prove It right now?
Oh, everyone.
Basically.
It's a collective effort.
That's what I said.
We used to have a coordinator and a what's the other position called? Deputy coordinator to help move Prove It forward, but they have since resigned. So Prove It has become a collective effort of SGA. If anyone who can and will help, all help is needed, please. Josh is in this review. So yeah. So you're not that desperate?
No, I'm just making sure.
Cool. So if you want to help with Prove It, please. PLS. Collegiate. Is that how you say? Yep. Collegiate Readership Program. So you may see that we have newspapers that is in the Retriever around campus, and that's because we fund it. That's pretty much it. We fund those newspapers. We fund to get those newspapers like USA Today, I think the Washington Post,
Yeah.
and other ones that you may see in newspaper stands located near the entrance of the Commons, near the CIC. Yeah. Yes.
Are we still funding that?
Yes. No.
It's
Yes,
been progressively cut back
So why did that lady from like the site department come over it?
because
It got cut back.
it got cut back. So the Collegiate Readership Program is a set of free newspapers with USA Today. There's been some concern among staff and faculty who like also reading newspapers that has been cut back for 2 years in a row, and there are never any papers available anymore. So it's always been an issue in SGA because like are undergraduate students using it? And that's a big question because there's no accountability. Like anyone can just walk up, even if you're like not a student here or any affiliation units, you can just walk up and take a paper. So, yeah.
Does everyone read the newspaper very well? No.
Used
Any
to
of
as
you
well.
used to?
Yeah.
Is that a question that are you admitting?
No, I just at my old school they had like cards you swipe to open the newspapers. Ooh, you can do that.
It'd be pretty.
The issue with that would be you'd have to pay for the technology to do all that.
That's true. Oh. Shut down this real fast.
I mean, like we could do it. Like I don't mind doing it, but like we'd have to put like in there. I think like 20 stands around the campus, so you could do it 20 different times. Or we could concentrate it in one area and just let everyone know where it is. But it's an option.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you, Brandon.
Are there options to change it to the electronic?
Yes, we were actually approached last year from USA Today to change it to electronic subscription for all UMBC participants. So you can just sign in on your phone. But the issue is that the original budget for this was 19,000, as you see last year. Actually, before then it was like 22. I think it's going to cost more than, I think around 24 or $25,000 in order to do that.
From what I can recall
I can
from Gregor Rooney, former SGA advisor, to my knowledge, he said that a USA Today rep usually comes every year to campus and tries to sell an app.
Mm-hmm. That's
which folks would have to not only download, but that free access will be through there, and I believe that it's been more expensive to do that than newspaper copies, physical newspaper copies. Period.
I'll look up the proposal and I'll send it to you.
Yes.
Just remind me if I.
Yeah. David is probably going to be the one that's going to be contacted by USA Today, so he's probably going to want one of us or any other folks from SGA to sit in that meeting for SEER representation. Cool. Any other questions? You're doing great, y'all. T-shirt matching fund.
What?
T-shirt matching fund.
Young, you want to talk about the T-shirt matching fund or the merchandise fund technically?
It's just for like student orgs that want to like order merchandise for their org to like promote it, and they can request it from the SGA, and I'll just like approve it, and then they get to ownership.
This fund and the marketing fund as well originated out of the finance board's like two of the most common requests of the finance board is T-shirts and funding for marketing for organizations. So what was done a while ago was they said, okay, we're going to take it out of the like we're not going to find won't hear any requests for T-shirts, and instead they'll put it here. This year we broadened it. It still says T-shirt matching fund. This year we broadened it to merchandise, so you can order. Don't have to order. You can still order T-shirts from it, but you can order anything. So if your organization wants like organization branded socks, hats, gloves, whatever, fidget spinners, you can do that all through the T-shirt matching fund. I think it's still overwhelmingly used for T-shirts, but yeah.
Yeah. Questions? It looks like you might.
Yeah, I have.
Go for it.
So, is this the same as like the first year organization fund thing?
Yes.
No, not the T-shirt matching fund. Before the marketing fund is for organizations founded. Correct me. Within the past 2 years. Yeah. So the marketing fund is for organizations that are founded within the past 2 years.
Okay.
To promote their organization.
So B38 is the fund, is a pot of money that newly established student organizations, newly meaning 2 years, so that's half your undergraduate career, to reach into and be like, hey, I need help. And they'll be like, yeah, here you go. And that's it. Good talk.
And then my second question was with B37. What are the like? I guess it would be that of crimes, but like, I know that a lot of the funds that we use here are for like everyone as like a student collective, but then everything like T-shirts or like socks, that's like for a single person. So how does that like factor in on things, or does marketing factor in?
So
wait, repeat your question. I'm not.
So it's like the same issue with like traveling, where money taken from students is given to items that a single person can use, as opposed to like open for everybody. So how does that like the club marketing fund?
So in order to apply for the merchandise or marketing funds, you have to be a fully funded status organization with the SGA, and the organization can't sell them. So, and they can only request up to $300 as well, so per organization. So. It allows like it's equitable amongst many different organizations.
Another idea behind it was that because new organizations don't have that foundation like other organizations to market themselves. It sort of is there as an assistance of like, here, we'll help you out. Here you go.
Right. My question was towards B37 though.
It's the same idea.
Okay.
That student organizations would be able to request funds to supply T-shirts to not only the members but potential members as well.
Okay.
And T-shirts are a culture at UMBC. Like people like T-shirts every year. And organizations request every year from the T-shirt fund, just as we get our own T-shirts every year. So.
Yeah. Almost intentionally.
Yes.
Are we ever gonna get like no sleeve? I'm asking too much.
No sleeve.
I forgot what those are called. Environmental sustainability event, quote unquote, Green Paw Fund. That used to exist. The reason it was cut was because I believe the finance board set a precedent where any event that or any organization that comes forward that requests food will be required to order with compostable material. The Green Paw Fund was sort of there with that same idea. It was slightly different, but it's been since cut. But it's pretty much the finance board looking more in favor of the request if it's environmentally friendly. And a good portion of that has been food. So that used to exist. But yeah, Achiever Project Recognition Program. So that's so we talk about all these various projects that either originated from the SGA or were part of a student project. And we don't really, and the only times we know about it is by word of mouth. So the point of the Achiever Project Recognition Program is to have like a plaque or something there that says like, hey, students did this, good job. So that not only do the team or folks that led that project get that recognition, but also that increased visibility of SGA, that not only are we an organization that does work that's very abstract, we also do concrete things, and our work is visible pretty much. But that's pretty much what that's there for. Questions?
So what your products have these?
Plaques. That's pretty much it.
Well, no, it's also the Solar Retrievers initiative thing as well. If you want to explain that, you want me to.
Okay.
So the Solar Retrievers is a newly formed organization. They were actually a group that originated from Proving. They brought the solar panel tables to campus. They are a newly founded organization. Last year we decided to partner with them on, do you remember the original Retriever project was the series of Retriever dogs that would be all around the campus. Many people remember that. But what the Solar Retrievers are doing is they're making another bronze retriever statue that will be lit at night, that will be put somewhere on the campus, that will likely use one of the old slabs from the thing. So it's multifaceted project. The Solar Retrievers just gave me their quote for their bronze statue that should hopefully order really soon.
And it's supposed to be placed in front of the event center.
I have no idea.
Great. We gotta figure out where it goes, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Good old Retriever statues. Cool. Any additional questions about the original project?
I have a question. So that was a newly formed organization. So can any organizations kind of partner with SGA and do something like that? Mm-hmm. And that would be like a new, like in this section if that happened, right?
Yes, most likely.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So that's just completely voided of finance board. It's just an SGA.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but if we budget for it,
Yeah.
if we budget the merchant, like usually it gets iffy when SGA is giving money to organizations, but we don't finally, like this is how we partner with organizations. We can put things in our budget, like whether it be the merchandise fund or the marketing fund or whatever have you.
Okay.
So they can access that money. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Cool. Intercollegiate relations. So later down, you may see a section that says mileage reimbursement. Any appointed representatives who are part of the University System of Maryland Student Council or the Maryland Higher Education Commission Council do receive reimbursement for traveling. And there's a set fee that's set by the university system that quantifies that. But I believe it's also for additional partnerships to local colleges that has been led by Joshua and Markia, of getting local colleges such as our community colleges and I believe some high schools as well on campus. It's a pretty cool thing. Questions?
It's also used to host, when we host meetings, like we hosted the USMSC meeting, we hosted an MHEC Student Advisory Council Committee meeting this year. We host them, so room reservations, food orders,
Yeah.
AV, still applicable.
Yeah. Cool. Moving on. Other. How's people feeling? We're halfway there. Not really. We're a little bit more than halfway there.
Easy.
How do people feel? Great. Chugging along. Thoughts, opinions? Cool. All right.
And you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
All right. Chugging along. Stipends. This is pretty self-explanatory, I will personally say. It's literally how much every single person gets who is appointed or elected by students or the student government. So the president receives that amount of money. The vice
Did you
president.
skip Prove-It?
Right, yeah, that's a lot.
Oh, did I skip Prove-It?
Yeah.
Where did Prove-It go? Oh!
Yeah.
I don't know why I went that far. Stipends. It's exactly what it sounds like. But we're going to go back to Prove It. So Prove It. Can you prove it? So the first four line items from B45 to 347 are grants and stipends to the two winners of last year's Prove It contest. It's a one-time thing of what monies they're receiving. Program marketing. Prove It has its own marketing fund to just market itself and market and get the word out there that Prove It's a thing and that folks can apply to it. And then the transfer to the Prove It Reserve, that's for our past winners / current winners that they'll be able to tap into. They do have that set limit that they were granted with any sort of Prove It contest that is part of the grant and stipends, which will be perforated along the time that they're working on it. Does that make sense? Prove It? Is that a question?
Yes.
Go for it, buddy.
Why is it separate from line B35?
B35.
B35 was cut because it was just like a flat amount of money. So we just expanded it to be more explicit with how it's going to
Where's the Clubhouse grant? Wait, is that another?
Clubhouse declined their grant.
Okay,
So that's why they only have half their stipends.
Yes.
So is B45 through B47, is that going to be, like, is there contest yearly?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a yearly contest. What happens is that the grant and the stipend goes into a separate reserves pot where they'll be pulling continuously until they run out of money. That's pretty much what happens.
Okay, why don't we go to the details of the contest, because I'm not familiar with
It's a good question for Jordan.
So, okay. So basically, it's any undergraduate. Okay, any undergraduate student that's not in an elected SGA position can apply. Can basically pitch an idea, or if they have any ideas like how they want to like improve campus. They pitch that. I don't want to say pitch, but they basically like they give an idea, right? And that's like how the application kind of starts. So you give your idea, and like you and your group like come up with this idea, and then like kind of like steps to how you can see it come into fruition. So then after that, you kind of apply the top 5. All the applications go through a screening process through other stakeholders on campus, not just students, like faculty, administration, and stuff like that. And they'll kind of like see which, they'll filter out to be the top 5 applications, or top 5 proven contest, whatever. And then after that, it goes to campus-wide vote, and then the top 2 who, or the top 2 votes who approve it. So after that, each team, as it currently stands, they get $10,000 to fund their idea, and then they get $2,000 to split up between the team members for, like a stipend. Okay. Yeah. But it's basically like an initiative for anyone. It's kind of like expanding this idea of like initiatives.
Tell your friends.
So, is the marketing? Is all the marketing in the Prove It Reserve also?
It usually lives in SGA, so no.
Okay.
The Prove It Reserve is just for organizations that are spending out of it. Not organizations, the winners that are spending out of it.
Okay.
Right?
Any other questions? Cool. Student appointments. We talked about that. Moving along.
Like, why is that separate from B41?
So that was B41 was added this year. We just cut B51 to 53.
Yeah. So it's pretty much moved to that.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question. Good vibes. Good vibes, no. So stipends. As I accidentally skipped through it, we started talking about stipends. It's how much people get paid. So president gets paid a little bit more than $7,000. Executive VP, $3,520. Treasurer, $3,520. VP SO, $3,520. Cabinet officers, about $17,500, which will be distributed depending on how large of a branch the president intends. And then all of the amounts that all of those officers would get paid would be in the Senate or joint legislation, or whichever it applies to. Yeah. Questions on those? Cool. Legislative branch. That's us. The speaker gets paid that much money, $2,112. The assistant speaker gets paid $1,056. The finance board chair gets paid the same amount as the speaker. Assistant finance board chair. That doesn't make sense.
Yes.
That doesn't. You didn't fix that. Gets to pay the same amount of money as the assistant speaker. And then senators get paid $6,336, not per person, but split into 6. Nine. So it's that amount divided by 9. That's how much you get paid. Fun fact. Finance board members, same dealio. That number divided by 3. And then every single legislative branch, of which there are only 2, has a secretary, of which they're both paid a flat fee of $500. Yeah. Last year was the most current year that it was revised and increased. But the largest increase happening with our cabinet officers and I would say senators and finance board members, as the pay used to be $585. But inflation, all right? Questions about stipends? Yes.
What is the what's the criteria that usually happens when the stipends get increased? Because we're kind of like increasing our own.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thought process behind stipend increases is to, even though as much as we try to avoid it, is to compare the work that is done among all these elected elected offices. And last year it was increased because it was determined, or at least seen from a good amount of folks, that the disparity of how much the president and other folks within the executive branch get paid, and then comparing that to the legislative branch, was very large. So it was increased to sort of try to close that gap a bit, because it seemed very unfair to other folks. But usually stipends, conversations have to be done with due reason and like some logic behind it. So last year was attempted to be done with like a formula to see how that would work. And it's weird because we determined the stipends for next year's members. But we also want to consider like inflation and the fact that because we have these positions, our opportunities at other jobs cannot be met. So an example is the president, the EVP, the treasurer, and the VPSO cannot hold a resident assistant or a paraprofessional position in residential life. And that's a significant amount of money that they would have been paid to sort of make up for it and like keep that competitive nature. That's why those positions are at the cost that they are. And that's something that we really have to keep in mind, is that we're dedicating work and time continuously to these positions, and some reward back, because not everyone has the ability to do work for free. Is good. Yeah. To my knowledge, we're among the lowest paid in the university system. Right, Josh?
Of the paid SGAs. Yes.
Of the paid SGA members. Yeah. But that's not like grounds to like increase it. Or at least that's not the only grounds to increase it. But yeah. I would personally like to see an increase in the secretary. Because that's a lot of work. We're gonna keep it going. Oh, was there any other stipend questions? Cool. We're gonna go down to university co-sponsorships. That is for co-sponsorships. So one of them is the Abernathy Library and Gallery. So we pay to have a DVD collection bought every year. With the modern era of digitizing and everyone watching things online, it's been cut. I don't really know what we're expecting for that line item, but again, DVD collection, of which there's a link on our SGA website of what's been purchased, is done through that line item. So we have an ever-growing library of the Friends season. And then hydration station, we have among the first hydration stations located in the, what's that place called? The Retriever Learning Center, right in the library. We pay for upkeep for that because we're the ones that put it there.
What is a hydration station?
So those are.
When you.
Is that water different from
It's
like
the water
fountain water? Is that water like separate from the water fountain water? I've always been curious of that.
Probably not.
It depends. I mean, it depends. I think it is at the newer ones, but not the older ones, like in the RLC. I will say one quick thing. If you'd like usage numbers for the DVD collection, I can get those. It's also very heavily used, even though many people don't really use DVDs as much anymore, and the streaming is a thing. DVDs, the DVD collection is still used. If we'd like to modernize that and like look into streaming services, we also can do that if people are interested.
Cool. City Events Board. Heard of them? I have. So we do give some amount, or at least a significant amount, to support the Quad Mania Carnival, which is happening in 2 Saturdays. Put that in your calendar. Yeah, and that's separate from the amount that we give them in our overall budget. That is primarily to support other things at the city events board, but this line item is primarily for the carnival. Questions? What's that?
So that's just for the carnival. That has something to do with the concert.
Correct.
So the remaining. Also, is this included in the 230,000 that they get?
It is not.
It is not. Okay. So
Separate line.
the 230,000, part of that goes to the concert.
It could, depending on how the student events board decides to do its budget. But because it's kind of a collective pool of monies, unless otherwise designated like here, it just kind of goes everywhere. So that may be used to like get 21 Savage on here. Yeah. 21 Yeah. Go away if you're interested.
So why are these two like not part of the charter donation?
Yeah.
That's a good question. My understanding is that these are specific. So like $14,000 has to definitely go to the quadrangular card.
Okay.
Like, and then $25,000 has to like go to homecoming. That's at least my understanding of it, but
I don't remember the origin of the homecoming contribution, but the Quadmania Carnival, my recollection is maybe it was 10 or 12 years ago, was added because SCB and SGA talked and decided we really need to ramp up the carnival. And so we're going to create a line in order to make that happen, and we're going to evaluate together was the result worth the investment. At some point in the past that happened, but because it was created initially as a separate thing to remind us we got to look back and see if we think that made sense. There it sits.
Okay. Fun fact: if the festival / carnival is ever canceled, that money's still spent. Just so you would know in the future, that money is in case that rain happens.
yeah. Well, like 2 years ago, the homecoming carnival was canceled, but they used it. They used it in other places. I think it was used more so the following year. That's why it was expanded last year, as in last semester.
Any other questions about the SCG section? No? Okay. Off-campus student services. That's a part of the Division of Student Affairs. It's a department located on the second floor of the Commons. No, it's not. It's on the first floor of the Commons. And this is for our off-campus residents, adult learners, and folks around that are part of a non-traditional status. So we support Commuter Week, which is a week entirely dedicated to our commuter students. It's pretty cool. Good Morning Commuters is a bi-weekly sort of breakfast that they give to commuters, sort of as an incentive, and to get them here on campus and get involved. But it's pretty cool times. Good people.
So for the breakfast, we only help fund it, right? We don't fund it.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
We sponsor 2.
All right, that's fine.
So they're the year. They're $2,000 each. Yes.
Good question. Cool. Any other questions about OCSS? Cool. Student life. That doesn't exist anymore. Campus life does. So Involvement Fest, we do help pay, or like pay a good significant amount of what is done at the Involvement Fest. So that is that reservation, getting all those tables out, tablecloths, supporting, making sure, because these are student organizations recognized with the SGA, tables for everyone. And this is for both fall and spring Involvement Fests. Student Leadership Award Ceremony. So that is, what's it called? Celebrating orgs. So every end of academic year, we have this beautiful thing called Celebrating Orgs, where organizations are invited to come and sort of like celebrate on the fact that they did good for the year, and sort of as a fun little transitional meeting and sort of a celebratory of recognizing 3 organizations in particular that's done good work for that year, and they're sort of displayed on that wall adjacent to the Greek room and Craig's old office. So that's to sort of pay for all of that, or at least a good chunk of it. Questions? Cool. Welcome Week. Welcome Week is welcoming people back to campus or welcoming new students to campus. We help support those funds for that week plus long celebration of welcoming. And that happens in the fall and spring semesters, with the most intense one happening in the fall semester. So it's a good word. Yeah. Leadership development and training, we do help co-sponsor and pay for Strive, which is a leadership development sort of retreat that happens once a year. Part of that fund also goes to the Retriever Leadership Institute, which is kind of what why we don't have 2 Strives a year, because the Retriever Leadership Institute has the overall thought that we could remove that barrier that folks who aren't able to go to Strive are able to just go ahead and attend a 5-week long session, 8 sessions, yes. So that helps pay for that. Questions? Cool. Athletics. Bike share. Those bikes that are at the entrance of the rack. That was a project done years ago. But we help maintain those bikes with that flat $4,000 fee. Yeah. We help maintain those bikes.
I would say that bike share was an initiative started by SGA back in 2012, 2013. It was out of a need because like many campuses have a bike share program. We did not. Now any student can go into the rack and rent a bike. It is very used. Actually, they spend over $4,000 a year. Athletics just covers the rest of the money for the program. But yeah, in the near future, we're actually looking to expand bike share. I'm not sure if that includes expanding this line, but in the next couple of years, who knows? We may have bike racks sitting in our views, like where you can just grab and go.
Woo! Grab and go.
That's actually the hope, but that's not necessarily the definitive plan.
Sounds like a very Joe thing to say. It's going to happen.
That actually was not a conversation I had with Joe.
Really? Wow. Joe Revere, in case you didn't know, is the director of transit, the people who control the buses. They've also sort of undertaken the task of community partnerships. I will talk about that as we sort of, that's actually not on here at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. So we'll talk about that once we get there. Women's Center. So we co-sponsored Take Back the Night and Sexual Assault Awareness Month. As you heard from Jess Myers, I believe a week ago, the Women's Center has a really small budget. So we go ahead and give them a helping hand in not only supporting Take Back the Night and victims of sexual assault, but also programming that they have throughout the month of April for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Yeah. Thoughts? Okay. Questions? Okay. Yes.
Do other let's see, services, not services, co-sponsorship people, like, do other places come ask SGA for like stuff, or
They can.
they can't?
The Women's Center partnership was just added. It was new last year.
Oh, okay.
So that like this is living and thriving.
Okay.
Yeah.
And pretty soon our like the majority of the arts partnership will hopefully be complete. So yeah, I mean at least the allocations to it. Let me say it like that. Right. So right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. All right. College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, also known as COS, not CAS apparently, COS. So there's an ongoing arts partnership where we help pay for student tickets per year so that students have the opportunity to go ahead and see a production, usually a theater production. So they do have matinee tickets for free for our students to go ahead and see a theater production. We should probably do that. The next one's Mackinac, happening in May. Civic events manager, so that was part of the memorandum for understanding. No, a memorandum of understanding. That was part put in place with trying to increase space for our student organizations to use in the Performing Arts and Humanities building. So we're hoping to slowly, gradually open up that space for our student organizations to use. So part of that agreement was having a student events manager who will be able to look at those requests and then make a determination from the calendar of events that the POB and COS has set up to see if it's one, feasible, and two, what sort of resources they may need. As they're a lot more cautious with the POB because it's kind of new, and they want to keep that space as squeaky clean as they can. And this is part of the agreement that we hope to maintain for years to come. Cool. And then year 1 of 5-year allocation. We're allocating monies.
Actually, year 1 of 2-year allocation.
Okay. Yep. So from what I can recall, the part 1 of 2 year allocation is to help put in that emergency fund in case folks break stuff, and just making sure that fund is available for that emergency purpose. And I believe that's its own purpose. Yeah. Questions? Does that make sense? Cool. And then we're now reaching the end. Transit. So, good friend, a good old buddy, Joe here. He's a good guy. So we have in our Arbutus Community Center opening up soon, I think. So this is on, if you go down the street of Arbutus through Poplar Road. Poplar Road? Yes. You reach sort of the main streets of Arbutus, and to your left will be, I believe it's called like 512, something like that. Is where going to be the new home of our Office of Community Relations? Affairs. Office of Community Affairs. We're going to have a coffee shop there called Oka Mocha. It's a cool name. I didn't call it that. And then not only will we have a coffee shop there, we really hope it to be a community organized space. We have rooms at the middle and back of that area that's going to be open for our SGA and other student organizations to reserve in case they're like tired of being on campus, which I understand. And then there's also going to be a maker space in the back for any organizations who need that sort of creative area to just have that work be done. But yeah, questions, concerns, comments? Yeah.
So, from what I remember, like our Arbutus community wasn't too keen on partnering up with like the UBC students with that thing because it didn't like we had an idea of what the community center would look like, and they had an idea of what the community center would look like. Everything's like beachy.
Yeah, that's beachy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah.
Speaking of first, because mine isn't really.
No, it's not really.
Oh, okay. Why is it called Oka Mocha?
Because we'll call it the league. The League of Entrepreneur Students called it that. They went back and forth between naming the office that, but they saw it that it was probably the best idea. So they stuck with it. We had no say over it.
What is it? What is it Oka?
Like, it's a play on words, like, what's it called?
Oka, no, it's Office of Community Affairs, OCA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then mocha is coffee.
Not to be confused with an orca, which is an animal.
Thank you for it. Thank you for it.
You're welcome. Any other? George?
Yeah, why is this under transit? Because it's gonna be
Yeah.
to a community, whatever.
So that's a good question. So the Office of Community Affairs doesn't quite exist yet.
Okay.
They're currently working that out. But Transit, Joe Revere has been working diligently through making those partnerships. So he's been working alongside with SGA and the Office of Institutional Advancement with getting that. But they've been the main ones leading that effort.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is the 75,000?
Is that amount allocated from this year?
Yeah, is that goes to that will go to the Office of Community Affairs, not transit, or would that go to transit?
It would technically go to Transit, but Transit is working alongside with us and OIA with like renovations and deciding what sort of furniture might go there.
Oh, okay.
It's mainly for the renovations cost. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Do we have like any hand in anything else that happens with transit? So like, do you like any if the buses like need renovation or like if there's a new stop, like do we do any of that or?
Yeah, so that's not us. They actually also have their own fee. It's a transportation fee, I believe. They hope, well, this is outside of the budget, but they hope to expand pretty soon and have more buses run to and from Okamoka for our students. Yeah, I'm hoping to see a Columbia line. Probably won't be during my time here, but we'll see. Any other questions? So y'all just went through the whole budget. Congratulations, I'm proud of y'all. You should get a certificate because it's not fun. So hopefully we'll be seeing a FY19 budget in soon.
Yep. I just ran into issues, so.
You know.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, be ready. Now you know what the line items are for and like the reasoning behind some of them. Any overall budget questions of how it works? Budgets, what happens to a budget? That Dr. Rabowski says. Yes.
So like, what part of this is not fun? I mean, not that it's like fun, but it's like it's not. It seems relatively straightforward. So
The part that ends up being not fun, from my experience, from my personal experience, is getting into the nitty-gritty of the numbers itself. And arguing about numbers and the reasons of like why this number should be higher, why this one should be lower. Or in years where communication between the executive branch and the legislative branch haven't been clear, those are usually not fun conversations because they just pull out of the ground like, hey, we're going to pay for this. And we're like, no. But I would say we have a pretty decent partnership with the executive branch. I hope too. Ones that's pretty clear. Yeah. Any other overall budget questions? Any? Going once? Going twice? Sold. Go for it.
It could be made apparent somehow which of these line items are like co-sponsored and like completely sponsored.
Oh, it is. If you go up, it says co-sponsorships.
No, I see what you mean. You mean which ones are like the department's actually putting money toward, and which ones are like just us, right?
Mm.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. All of these are entirely not Strive. That's one, and Welcome Week, obviously. Basically all of the things under student life are not entirely us. But all the other things, I guess. Okay, also under SEB. All the other things are us.
Okay.
Yes.
So any like partnership would be a co-sponsorship.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any exceptions to that?
What do you mean?
So like I'm thinking about how we're paying for think it's like what I'm asking is about like kind of like student agency kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like the newspaper is what we're paying for like in full, right?
Yes.
But it's not being used by students.
We don't know that.
Right. We don't know like how many of the students are using it, how many of like non-students are using it.
Yes.
So like I guess that's why I'm asking the question to make sure like how much of a stake we have on specific.
So basically everything in the operating tab is free reign. Basically. Within reason, of course. Like everything else, like the overall tab, like touching admin overhead, touching the salaries and things like that, that needs to be done with conversation. Everything in the operating tab, and so like all the programming, all the initiatives, the Senate line item is the only thing in the overall tab that we can just arbitrarily change. Does that make sense?
I think so. So like
Yeah.
Involvement Fest, are we paying for that in full or are we only paying for it?
No, not in full. Yeah, it's definitely not in full. Involvement Fest costs a lot more than $5,000 a year.
You see those big balloons? Like 1,000. It's not really.
I don't think so. That no, frivolous.
It's like a car.
But yeah, like everything under co-sponsorships, like co-sponsorships can easily be added, taken away less easily. Like we used to have co-sponsorship with the Career Center about an etiquette banquet that was cut out 3 years ago. So yeah, etiquette fee. So we can, like, things can come in and leave, but of course the conversation. Anything above co-sponsorships in the Senate line item is free reign, like completely.
Yeah. I mean, I would personally say that everything requires a conversation, hence why we go through a double whammy process to go through us and the finance board, just to make sure that the reasoning behind the president isn't completely lost. / if there's a problem with it, we should probably speak up about it.
I think the question that Brandon raised about agency is a really interesting one and important to think about in connection with who is just spending money. So there's some things that SGA is supporting just because SGA wanted to see it happen and there probably wasn't another way to make it happen, like plugging in carnivals in that category. And so SGA is asserting influence just by putting the money to that purpose and then making sure the thing comes into being. Sometimes some of these things like Involvement Fest would exist with or without SGA's contribution. If SGA ever cut that money out, campus life would have to find a way to make it work. It might diminish the impact of the event. But the fact that there's a contribution coming from SGA means there's also an opportunity to talk about how the money gets used. And so there may be more of an opportunity for SGA to assert some influence over some of the things it's funding than things that it's not participating in the funding. Right? There's stuff all over the university. SGA is not participating in the funding. It can't say, well, let's talk about why you need the money from us and how you're going to use it. When SGA made a big contribution to the creation of the Recruiter Learning Center, part of what the SGA leadership at that time negotiated was we want to be involved in a prominent way in picking up the furniture. Both the initial purchase and then after it gets reviewed, how it's being used, we want to be involved in the purchase of new furniture. Right? So that's using the opportunity of funding center to gain some influence. To me, it's a question SGA should always be asking. If the department comes to you and says, here's something we want to see happen, we would like your money because we don't have the money to make it happen. Oka. It's a good opportunity for SGA to ask itself, well, what do we want from this? Right? Is it that we just want to see it happen on the terms that it's being presented to us, and we think it's appropriate that the activity fee cover this rather than something else, and so we're going to do it? Or is this an invitation into a conversation about, well, if we give you the money, then how can we participate in shaping what happens with the money so that students get the most benefit?
Yes.
I'm done.
Okay. Any last questions? This is not the last time you'll see budget, so don't worry. We'll have more opportunities. So with that, we're going to move on. Thanks for sticking through all that. we're now on advisory report. Dave, you get to go first.
You've heard that the application for next year has been extended to Wednesday. You may not have heard that some of the positions were reopened for lack of competition. The election board has reopened applications for president and executive vice president. So whether or not you intend to be a candidate yourself, you have a stake in the quality of leadership in this organization for the future. So I really hope that she'll reach out to people who maybe to be tapped and encourage them to apply. It can feel like a really big risk, right? To say I'm going to put my name on a ballot and let people decide. But it's important that people do it. So if you know people who are maybe open to being persuaded, I would talk to them. That's my final report.
Okay.
Were you saying that it was only reopened for the president and EVP position?
Previously, the election board reopened treasurer, senate, and finance board. And then today announced they're also opening up president and executive VP.
So every position is currently open except for DPSO.
Correct.
Thank you.
In the event that there isn't like enough competition, do those positions just run like uncontested?
That can happen. The requirement in the Constitution is that you have to be named on at least 5% of all ballots cast in order to be elected. In the past, when races have been uncontested, in my experience, the one candidate who's running will get elected. However many percent of the board.
Unless get 96% of writings. Maybe one.
I had a question about the how the assistant director search is going. And so are we like going through an entirely new applicant pool now?
We are in a odd position right now because who attended interviews in the room? Like, raise your hand. Like at least just one, yeah. So we're I got you. So on Friday we will be discussing some candidates for those that helped out with some of the interviews.
So senator updates. Does anyone have any initiative updates?
Approved applications due April 13th.
Thank you. Tax day.
Those are approved applications?
Mm-hmm.
I've already got one. I forgot to tell you.
Anyone else? Shared governance committee updates? I have one actually. So last week the FM policy committee met at the new event center, and I have to say the conference room is beautiful. Their whole office area is like very nice. They have a nice sitting room. I like it.
They finally got their furniture in.
Yeah, they were still unpacking when I was there. There were lots of boxes. To give you guys an update, there is a potential sponsor, or at least there was word of a potential sponsor of the new event center. Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
No.
That'd be so cool. But the athletics department hasn't really received any update on that since they heard it. They said 2 weeks ago last week, so I guess now it's 3 weeks ago. Pinnacle is working on negotiating hotel deals with nearby Baltimore hotels, so that when we have recruits or other teams coming to stay, it'll be cheaper, and we won't have to cover the cost of paying them on campus to stay on campus or off campus, which is good news for us. And then there is also the fact that Green Turtle is negotiating something with Pinnacle. I don't know what that's going to look like. They said maybe it was a concession stand, maybe it was advertising. Then we were just generally discussing the impacts of our win. Congrats to the basketball team. And they were talking about how this was going to spike in enrollment in next year's application, which we've already kind of seen the effects of. There was a number amount that was put on it. This was just from an article, so don't take it as like the exact number. It was about 3 million, I want to say. And the process of it is at the conference, so America East will get the money that we get from winning the game, and it would be distributed among all the teams of the conference, and they decide how it's distributed, so it's not equal, or it is not usually equal. It's usually whichever team wins gets more, and it's paid out over 5 years. So I'll keep you updated as I know more of what that looks like, but we will be getting one number, not an exact number by any means, not an actual number, but like an estimate was around 300,000. That would be for the next 5 years, so that's the amount. We had a conversation about season tickets specifically for faculty. So some faculty were talking about how there is no discount for faculty season pass tickets. They have to pay, I think right now it's $150 for season pass tickets, and they were saying that there's no discount. So one of the members did some research and found out that among all the other schools in our conference, the only other school that has a lower price is UMass, and it's $75. Every other school is within the $125 to $150 range for season pass tickets. And we also realized that all the schools that have higher prices are also the schools with newer event centers. And if they have lower prices, it's because they play in features or like old high school auditorium style. So we've seen that the shift into a new event center or a new auditorium has also led to the increase of prices, and that's just constant across the conference. So if you ever get questions about why those prices are that way, that's one way you can look at it. There was questions about security, the fact that the security is very intense, or so I heard, at some of the games. The athletics department is saying that security will continue to be the same way that it has been, and they won't reduce security in the future, because now that they've moved to a new center, they just have to step up their game. And they're also looking at a couple events for next year and how they're going to build off of this year's success. One of them is a new Midnight Madness event, so that'd be a really interesting event for SGA to partner with the athletics department to kind of kick off the season. And also they're still keeping open the option of having a big name school come and play us, but they're not sure who wants to come play us anymore.
Rematch!
So that was that. So it was a really short meeting. It was kind of just a touch base. But that was the whole meeting. And that's my update. Does anyone else have updates?
I did talk for RSA. We had Student Disability Services come and talk with us. And me personally, I don't know how many of you feel this way, but like the lack of accessibility on campus is kind of like an issue. And so they were comparing us to other Black campuses and how like much more relatively accessible our campus is, and like the issues with renovating older buildings to be accessible compared to spending that same money on these newer buildings that were constructed with life science buildings supposed to be like amazingly accessible. So just as kind of like a touch base, like where we are with accessibility on campus. So if people feel like
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Okay, so does RSA know about, and I guess SDS too, know about like the elevator on the first floor of Erickson on the right side that keeps breaking?
they should know about like all the they have tickets. So what SDS does is they have like a sort of ticket thing, but they can't really do anything. They essentially expedite fix-it tickets. So you should still be telling everyone whenever they have an issue to submit a fix-it ticket. And there's no like, you can never submit like too few or too many. You can't submit too many. So the more that they get, the more urgent they understand the issue to be. So don't be like, oh, I already submitted one. You don't have to. Like everyone should submit one. And you get like hundreds. It'll actually get fixed.
I'm really curious as to why they haven't fixed. Maybe it's fixed now. I haven't seen it. Last week with the walker elevator.
Yeah,
That one's like.
I have a second thing about elevators is that it's done by a separate
Sorry, go ahead.
It's done by like a separate company. So like they'll say like, oh yeah, it'll like from their end they were telling us how like, oh it'll be done by Tuesday. It's done, actually it's on a Friday. Like it's not like it's essentially like out of our control because it's like a third party that's like fixing everything.
I agree with you, but I also think that when it comes to the walk-in garage, because there's kind of no other great way of getting up to the top. Maybe there is, and I just don't know it, but I know that the most accessible way is probably the walk-in garage. But it's like been broken, at least last mentioned, for about a month.
Okay.
So maybe it's just that they didn't see any tickets about it because people don't know to put in tickets about it, and they just assume someone knows about it. But I feel like that's.
No, they know about that too.
Okay.
I'm just like curious why, like, of all elevators, that one has to be the one that's not fixed for a month.
Yeah.
So like, so I know I guess like a common trend for like these problems is like people not knowing, like they can still like submit like fix-it tickets. Like, do you think that we could, I don't know, tell people that they can submit as many as possible? So like, the more fix-it tickets, the better. Like flyers like that. I don't know. Something.
I guess my concern comes with if they already know about the problem, then I'm wondering why is there a delay for a month? Like I can understand a week or two, but a month of that elevator being out of order.
Yeah.
Like I'm like why?
Was there reasoning behind it?
I think it's like actually very like that one breaks frequently as well. It's been out for a while, and can't imagine them just leaving it offline because they even redirect the traffic. I don't know if you noticed they redirect the traffic at the top of the garage. We can ask someone.
I'm curious.
Like I'm pretty sure someone in FM is very aware of the situation.
I'm sure they're not like just not gonna fix it.
Yeah.
But I'm like curious, like, because yes, we can always submit more fix-it tickets, and I feel like that. But as we're moving forward, like, what's the process after someone has a fix-it ticket in, and like where is that line coming from, so that we can help with that, or like we can understand why things are happening.
Yeah.
Right. I'm thinking if it is third party that continues to like fall short, if it's time to like switch people.
Yeah. Like I'm just curious because I don't know what happens. There were multiple events that I missed.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know where it was happening. How did that? Very long. So where are we going?
Well, if we have no shared governance.
I don't know if this is a shared governance. I don't know if it's not. But I went to a focus group for student digital services on Friday, and they were basically like looking for a way to get people to know that they exist. So like I don't know if know, but like they basically like when there's misconduct that isn't academic or sexual, they take care of like everything, all the rest of it. So like basically stuff that happens in prisons. And they were worried because they have like a pretty big role in like when people get permanently expelled from campus, but no one really knows about them and no one reads the student code content. So they just wanted people to they asked some of us, it was me and two other people, and they were like, we just wanted ideas about increasing their length. And they wanted to change the name too. So
I did the same thing. Their name folders are interesting.
yeah.
Does that actually go through us?
No. Actually, but
It's through the Division of Student Affairs. So it's probably not.
Just for clarification, this was peer review council? Was this peer review council?
no, it was the student judicial services, and they're I think you're in the trailer to the right of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get in trouble, that's what you do.
And that was like their main problem was that people only know about them when they get in trouble.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Come and tell everyone, like, about something else because I'm excited. restorative practices is a thing, and I talked about it briefly the first time I came by when we did our subcommittees. So that's like it happens like several times each semester where there's a restorative practices training, and that's how I got to know Daniela and I think the other guy's name is Jim. Yeah, from Student Judicial Services. So they're all right. And so they're all trained to train people in restorative practices. So if you're interested in these kinds of things, hit me up. If you think anyone else might be interested in these kinds of things, hit me up. And I think that'd be a great way for them to get them to know them through more of an educational setting than I do.
Yeah, because they brought up restorative practice and have a focus group, and they were like, do we want to put that in the name? And I was like, maybe not, but you can implement it into your whatever you do. And yeah.
So what else do they do besides like? Yeah.
They made it seem like all they do is they take they process the different misconduct requests that they get, and then they basically like allocate the punishment accordingly, and they oversee each one, and yeah, you get in trouble. So like most of the things that they get are like cards, like parking tickets, and people will request to like a hearing, and then they'll like take it and stuff. But one of the things that they were saying that I was like interested in was that the fact that they don't do they don't have students come in to do any of that. Like it's all led by people who are trained, and like they have like they're like masters and whatever, and it's like a handful of people that do that. And so I was kind of like, maybe if they opened it up to students to do like the smaller stuff, they would get more students coming by. But it kind of
there's an application for SGAs.
There is.
Yeah, there's a student hearing board that the application is in March.
Is that separate from there?
I don't believe so. For example, whenever I've gone through, like as an RA, whenever somebody's gone through a hearing for something judicially, there's like a hearing board, and they sit in front of like 5 different students, and they help make the decision too.
Okay.
The applications would extend to something.
Now, the higher up stuff, potentially, I'm not sure. Maybe that's what you're talking about. I don't exactly know, but there is an application for something.
Okay. Yeah, because they kind of just made it seem like no one just like cared about them. I don't know how to help. Because I don't know, it just seems like I asked them like what they hope to gain from students, from like more students hearing about it. I wasn't really getting like a good answer. And I was like, okay.
It would be interesting to have a larger conversation with them.
Yeah.
Any other updates? Alright, announcements.
Weekend night tonight, when's last weekend?
Thanks.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, weekend late night, like I saw Josh's post on that, and I was at home, and I was so confused. I'm like, why would you choose Easter weekend to do this?
It's the last weekend of every month.
Okay, so it was like kind of
That
not like
wasn't
a,
intentional.
right. I was just like, that's so
Because last weekend was the weekend back from spring break, so that didn't make sense either.
right.
And it would have been the second, it would have been too close to the previous month, February. Yeah.
Yes.
Bookstore is still looking for volunteers this week to help out one of their orders. It's not that bad. This week they're asking for 3 hours, last week was 2 hours. Just so they have to. They have to. It takes a long time to explain like what you're doing to people. And so last week I came in. It's really not that bad. You just count stuff, where like you put stuff up. It's like that's it, and then you get a $20 gift card.
For every
Maybe
time? Is it $30?
For every time.
What?
So, like,
Nah.
Yeah, right. I was
Yo,
about
I'm
to
putting
say.
that.
$30 now?
What?
I think
Is
it
it
would
3
still
hours?
be 2.
Yeah,
Oh.
It's still going.
You said it's $30 now?
$20.
Oh,
So
okay.
like, even if you came last week, you can come back and get another $20 gift card. So,
That that will buy you the You Must Be Cinderella shirt if you put in your own $5. So.
Yeah, I bought this hoodie last week.
I have an announcement, I guess. So, basically, when you talked about late night, I had a meeting with Dr. Barnhart like a couple of weeks ago. I forgot to talk about it.
Who's that?
Dan Barnhart, he's the director of Campus Life. Yeah. One thing that he talked about in that meeting was kind of about like how like the transition about late night and like how like in the future it's going to be more of like a like not traditional, but it's like more of a common thing that like every weekend will just be like late night. So it won't be like you like, oh, we're choosing this weekend. So it's eventually it's just going to be like it happens like every weekend. So that's like a free option for students. That's the goal.
Right.
But what was the basically what he's looking for and what he's interested in, and like I guess like what some students are interested in with SGA, at least I was interested in, is getting more input from students who aren't as involved in student organizations or things on campus about what they believe is like vibrant about campus and campus vibrancy. So I sent out an email last week, I think, about if you were interested in like focus groups, being part of a focus group for campus vibrancy. He emailed us again. The dates have changed though for the focus group. I'll email you guys again, but the dates have changed. But I think he really, what he's looking for, and like I guess what, not just him, but like in general, like I guess something that it seems like I got from Campus Life is like they're very interested in working with SGA and trying to figure out what they can do and what we can do to improve the vibrancy on campus. If that makes sense. But the thing is that it's such a like abstract thing to go after that it's really hard to like narrow down and like say something.
So to like touch on that, I was talking to like some faculty members. Like I don't know, it was just like a random like thing that I wanted to do. So I spoke to all of my professors and I talked about like how like what like UMBC like what our identity is surrounded. Oh no, surrounded around? No, that's not the right term. Surrounded around, and they were basically like telling like because I guess my main. I don't know how words are really bad. Collect my thoughts. Okay, so I've noticed that I guess like the reason why we're lacking in the campus vibrancy department is because like people do not have an identity on campus. Does that make any sense? Like we don't have like a collective identity as like UMBC students. Like we just. I noticed that like people just go here and they just say that. Or you guys share the same like experience?
I'm wondering if we can like go like deeper though.
Yeah.
Because like when we were talking about focus group, I was trying to think of like who would be the least interested in things like student organizations or campus involvement. And what I was thinking of was like older students, like adult students that came back. And I feel like they would feel like, oh yeah, student organizations are over for me. They're all like in their 20s or whatever. And then I thought of like my friends that are personally like not interested in that. They seem to be like, I'm just here for my degree and what my career.
Yeah.
So maybe if those opportunities were, that would be a way. Yeah. But I agree with you in that like an overarching like I'm a UMBC student, just kind of like
and redefining like what it means to be a UMBC student, like so people can like want to, I don't know, claim us. Yeah. You know, like for example, like the UMBC that we saw after the like UVA upset, right? It was like I'm a UMBC student, like go dogs, yeah. And people were like putting UMBC in their bios, like when did people like rep UMBC like before this big win? Like I want us to like develop like a collective identity in that sense. Like I want to see the UMBC that we saw after the upset.
How do you do that?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So like we need to like
Why More upsets.
That's the question that like, we're trying to figure out. How do we work together to do that?
So I was talking to like faculty members, and they were like saying to push like different aspects that make UMBC great. So like Dr. Wachowski, for example, kept saying that we need to like advertise to people like how great we are academically, and I think people know that already, but they don't know that we're like you know like big dogs. I'm sorry. This is like very, very like general, and I don't know what I'm saying, but like you get the gist. Yeah.
I have a thought that I want to mull over with you, Mariam, is that when you're building an identity, how much of that is like, instead of saying like what you are, it's like saying what you aren't. So like when we're saying we are UMBC, we're saying that we're not UMD and we're not Towson and things like that. And I feel like that's part of what the upset was.
Yeah.
Was that we beat other colleges.
Yeah,
and that's
everyone
how
is like distinguish themselves. Yeah.
Right, and in that way, we're saying that we are UMBC because we are better in this field than other universities are. And so in that, it's not like we're cultivating our own image in that way, but it feels like we're kind of like climbing like on the backs of other colleges, showing off how much better we are, and that's how we build renown.
You see, like, but I feel like that's like that's what makes it. I don't know. Going off of like the whole upset thing, it was like we are UMBC because we produce like the most like black like MD PhDs, or like people were finding other things to build our identity with, like outside of the upset. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I guess we're building off the backs, but like that's what I don't know. How much can you do like with the university, like, or am I
like competition? Right. I mean, like you have to be like, if we're the number one who's the black PhDs, there's always going to be a number 2 and number 3. Like, I mean, I think it's always going to be really riding off the backs of other people and everything. I mean, you know, it's competition.
Yeah.
I think the thing about vibrancy is that it's more about this, I don't want to say pride, but it's associated with like this like self-assurance, like, yeah, this is the school I go to, like I belong to this community, that I personally think is lacking here at UMBC. And I think because of like things like the basketball events and like the articles that we've been like showcasing about UMBC, it kind of does give a more reflective part that we are a good university, we're a great university, and that we're great because of our distinctions. We're not great because we're like other schools.
Yeah, and like how many? Yes.
And I think that's something that needs to be more voiced here. It's like I think a lot of things about this school and why it's not as vibrant is because we keep comparing ourselves to other schools in the University of Maryland school system. But if we'd rather take pride in the things that make us different, I think we would be more vibrant. And that's the thing that Dan was talking about. He was like, we're never going to be a College Park, or we're never going to be a Towson. We're going to be UMBC because we have a culture here that's specific to us. But it's how do we get people to take pride in it and like be like, yeah, we're different.
Yeah, I kind of disagree. Losing my voice, by the way, so I don't know what's happening. But I think identity at UBC is very heavily defined on what you're involved in. And I'm not saying that's how it should be. I think students that aren't involved, like for me, like my identity is based on like where I've been in SGA for 3 years, and me as an RA, and my like placing in like other student orgs that I'm in. And so like that's because I've made that for myself. But I think what you guys are tapping more into is how do people that aren't as involved find their identity the same way we have, like through our organizations and stuff like that. Because I think if you were to go to anybody that's heavily involved, they could tell you what their identity was here on campus. But I don't think you could say the same for those that aren't as heavily involved or don't know how to get as heavily involved. So I think you guys are tapping into like a deeper question of, sure, like people have identities here, but what about those that don't, and where can they find that without having to like kill themselves in involvement?
Yeah. So I think those are like two different things. I feel like that's like a personal like identity within like the greater fabric of UMBC. But like just like I guess my at least what I'm like my main issue is like people just being proud to come like to be here, like proud of being here. And I feel like I guess I guess they could like develop that pride like by being in like specific like subgroups, but yeah.
Somewhat really, you just defined what.
Wait, hold on. Last sentence. Sorry.
I feel like it kind of just, it's a hard discussion because, like Lily said, it's kind of up to people to do something here to build their own identity. Like, I have friends who just, they go to school here and like, they go home and then it's like, they live their life. And it's like, not having a UMBC identity isn't inherently a bad thing. It just means to get to school and go to school. But for the people that are here and are doing stuff, you do develop that kind of pride and stuff. And so I think it just comes with being involved, and being involved is not something like you can like say, hey, you should get involved, but you can't really like make people get involved. So
what would make people want to be involved? Like
something like the basketball game, like is like pretty much, at least for me, the biggest thing that's happened for the school since I've been here. So it's like when you like capitalize on stuff like that happening, and you get people who normally aren't involved in anything talking about the school, then you get an influx of people who want to participate in more like campus activities. But it's such that like, it has to be something like really major like that to happen. But there are like other like potentially like news breaking and groundbreaking things that happen on campus here that they don't get talked about because they're not like they're not groundbreaking outside of the campus.
Yeah.
But or like it's outside of the campus, like or the smaller communities here. So it's just kind of just like just breaking the shell that's here, and I don't want to say like not focusing on people who aren't involved because like you should focus on everybody, but like the people who are involved do have an identity, and like figuring out what everyone who's like involved in different things has in common is like I feel the direction to go. Yeah.
So with the what you were saying, Lily, and what you were saying, Miles, in your tail end about the students that aren't involved seem to be what, like Dan was saying. Same thing. He was looking for focus groups of students that are not really involved. That's right.
Yeah, we're trying to like yeah.
So that would, I guess, be a way of including students that don't have like heavy involvement and have their identity that way. I was thinking about how I feel like a lot of what UMC lacks in terms of like a community and like a community identity, of how you're saying people just go home like on the weekends. And I was like wondering, like we also don't seem to have a lot of things going on like at night. I'm thinking of other places that have more of like a college town feel, where they have more things going on just in general, and so they're more like proud of that.
I think we could like, I don't know, maybe it would help to like look at, and I feel like basically like to jump off of the whole like commuter like thing, like we like started off as like a commuter school, like, and everyone like went home, and then like we've evolved to like a honors University of Maryland, where like people like, I don't know, maybe looking at other commuter schools, but I don't know if there are other commuter schools that like that have our, sorry, I'm really bad with words. What am I trying to say?
That are like us.
Yeah, that are like us. And also like another thing that's unrelated, sort of to touch off of like you saying that it sucks that like the whole like basketball upset was like what basically like got people to like, I don't know, be proud of our school or like find an identity in like the UVA upset. That's one of my concerns, is that I guess my concern is that like we'd be a school maybe a school like focus on sports rather than like other things that make us UMBC. Yeah. I'm not expressing this well enough. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I think so. The 16th seed and being a number 1 seed was a really powerful, fascinating thing, and I'm still trying to fully understand what that moment was.
Yeah.
But it seems to me just knocking off the number 1 seed would not have. It would have been fun to watch because you're watching UMBC's basketball team. It's strange. It's on national TV. But the power in that moment was because the way that happened, and the fact that we were an underdog and knocked off the number 1 seed, sort of was a way of expressing something that was already true or that we already valued, and extending it into this new arena. Literally.
Yeah.
Now we're expressing in basketball this sense of ourselves that has come out in lots of other ways, but has not been anywhere near as visible. And so lots of people could feel a connection to it because a lot of people have felt that kind of spirit, the underdog, we're not defined by any one thing, but we kind of make our own identity, and it's quirky. And I think that got helped along by people who were down in Charlotte who talked up UMBC in a really effective way. But I think it's possible to do that in arenas other than basketball, but that it probably has to involve those things. It's something that's already true, that's kind of somewhat spontaneously emerging into a new field, but it's a surprise, the familiar stuff wrapped up in a surprising way. So I'd be thinking about how could you make that true? Where else could you go to something that hasn't happened yet but could, that would reflect what UMBC already is but isn't quite? You know?
I appreciate that a lot. Like I was like wrestling with the whole idea. Like I was like, oh, people are gonna think like UMBC is like a basketball school, like because like we like just because of this one basketball game, and we're just like amazing in like all of these other like aspects. So like I didn't actually think about it in the way that like our general like energy is just like I guess crossing over to a different arena, like you said. I appreciate it.
It's the combination of what's familiar with what's surprising. To me, that thinking about it that way is a completely different approach than the one that I would fear, which is to say, we will now declare a UMBC identity, and we will try and make sure that every incoming first-year student is oriented to that identity and memorizes the 3 things and shows up in the 2 ways. And UMBC has not been that, and I think it's great that it hasn't. But I think it's possible to think about how you can inspire people to feel even more of what they already feel.
Yeah, because I think going off of that, like while you were speaking, I heard you kind of contradicting yourself a little bit of just like, I guess enjoying what UBC is, like UBC is and UBC, like what we stand for and stuff like that. But at the same time, I guess be careful of comparing our culture to other university culture. So like because people like Towson and UMD who have like college towns and stuff like that, one have a heavier like drinking oriented culture, and that's been talked about on this campus before. Like higher party culture, higher like there's more issues and that becomes more issues, sexual assault and stuff like that. But I guess also recognize that people should talk to UMBC to the end of the day, and they'll be like, yeah, I hate that there's nothing to do on campus, but some people literally come to us for that exact same reason. Like I like that we don't have Greek houses on campus. Some other people would debate that, but like for me, I didn't want to go to a really heavy party culture school. If I want a party, I can sneak one out, but it's not like everywhere I go there's a party. So I guess just like when talking about campus vibrancy for everybody that's working on it, also remembering like the authenticity of UMBC and what stands us out from every other school is that our culture is completely different. We're not like every other school. But that's also just my own personal feelings, and I know other people feel differently as well. So, alright. Anybody else? Baron, did you get what you need? You were asking like questions here.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to like talk about it. Yeah.
Cool. Huh?
I had an announcement. Okay. Tomorrow, Hot Talks, sponsored by Mosaic, the Art of Drag. There will be 3 drag queens on campus tomorrow. So it's happening tomorrow. 5:30 to 7:30 in the Skylight.
What's it called?
the art track.
Hot Talks.
Hot dogs, yeah. I'm so excited. Well,
Alright, what else? SRC reports. We didn't do it last Wednesday. We better do it this week.
Sorry, can somebody tell me what SRC reports are?
Sure. SRC reports are bi-weekly forms and reports that you fill out bi-weekly. Talking about progress that you made since your last initiative, plans that you have, just have you fulfill your requirements in your hiring letter. Basically, it's just like an update that you give your week, saying what you've been doing to send your outside of meetings. That way, whenever the select review committee meets per quarter, is evaluating whether or not you get your stipend or half a stipend.
If they're due this week again.
Huh?
If they're due this week again.
No, they were due last week. I said if you didn't do them last week, do them this, like do them ASAP. Oh my goodness. Okay, anybody else? Now that I'm here, does anybody have any questions for me about earlier? Anything I missed? No?
You left them in good hands.
Yeah, I know. I did my best. Alright. Alright, adjourn the meeting at 8:17. David, are you happy I gave you a spot this week? Yes. I went this way faster, David.